If you're watching a review video on Gust video game adaptation of Fairy Tail anime, you're probably reasonably familiar with the show in question. But here's the funny thing. I wasn't. When the game was announced, I thought it sounded cool and I proceeded to binge watch a few seasons on Funimation. And, well, I liked what I saw. The sense of humor, it was right up my alley and I started to fall in love with the cast, especially Lucy and Natsu. The show itself struck me as incredibly gamey, and my excitement for the upcoming game grew even more. For those unfamiliar, I'll give you a brief outline of what I'm talking about before we dive further in here. In the world of Fairy Tail, magic, it's not an uncommon sight. Not everyone can wield it, but if you see someone cast a spell, you'd bat even less of an eye than you would in a Dungeons & Dragons high fantasy campaign. As such, many of the world's problems, from the apocalyptic end times to the surprisingly mundane, are handled by guilds of wizards. These tasks are submitted in writing and broken up into classes, D being very easy fetch quests, all the way up to S, which require a special certification for the wizard to even attempt them. There are harder quests within S that some might argue should get their own grade, but D, C, B, A, and S serve us well enough here. But you see what I mean by how the world of the anime feels pretty much like a video game from the get-go? One thing I really enjoyed was how much voice-acted dialogue the game had. They managed to secure damn near all the Japanese voice actors from the show, and that's something I've seen a lot of anime games try to skimp on, and I think it really helps with the feeling of immersion in the world. The interactions between Natsu and Happy and Lucy are some of the funnier moments from the show, and I was pleased to see that the atmosphere transferred over to the game. The music is also good. There's a soundtrack that I can best describe as jaunty that is copy-pasted from the anime, and while I like it, I'm kind of reminded of that episode of How I Met Your Mother where the two characters had to drive from college to the Midwest with a single-track tape deck stuck playing I'm Gonna Be by the Proclaimers over and over and over. At first it's great, but after many hours, you just want it to stop. Now might be a good time to mention that while I often will review games on this channel with only 4 or 5 hours under my belt, as I like to get reviews out as fast as possible, and surprise, surprise, I'm not given review codes by developers, that isn't the case here. I've actually earned every single Steam achievement for Fairy Tail. I've done every quest, every post-game thing, and I've clocked in just under 40 hours. More on that later. I just wanted to explain that that's why it might sound like I'm a little over the game by now. One thing that certainly didn't wear thin even after 40 hours was the world. I mentioned earlier how even the Fairy Tail world from the anime felt video gamey. I think that really helped with making the transition in my head. The world is full of magic and guilds and quests already. Gust games need to have fun and whimsical world to survive. They aren't going to stand on graphics alone. There isn't a crazy amount of lore, at least on the surface, of the world from Monster Hunter World, but it's so beautiful that it speaks for itself. This is the other end of the spectrum, the games published by Koei Tecmo. In the Atelier games, for example, and Fairy Tail here, the environments you move about are almost representations of the game world as opposed to graphical depictions of it. I'm old enough and have played enough pen and paper games to be cool with that. It's just something to be aware of. 2 more things before we part ways. Firstly, if you've made it this far, I'd love it if you could hit that subscribe button and join the fastest growing channel on YouTube, at least when measured by body fat. Secondly, I know I mentioned I'm an old timer. I remember back when every movie and every TV show had to have a video game spin-off, and most of those spin-offs were ball-crushingly hard. Fuck you, G.I. Joe on the NES. But nowadays it seems like only anime shows get video games made about them, and they aren't usually that tough. Well, I hate to break it to you, but Fairy Tail, it's not that tough either. It's no exception. On the screen you'll see a 100-year quest, and in the lore that means this big baddie has gone 100 years without being bested, causing the quest to stay open. Yeah, as you can see, I'm not even breaking a sweat. Fairy Tail, it's not a difficult game. It's not a bad game either for fans of the show. I can definitely recommend this if you get it on sale. Its combination of being short and being easy make it really tough for me to recommend at full price, but you'll still enjoy yourself. Until next time, I've been Septimus of the Grim Alliance, and you have been an amazing audience, so I thank you.